All right. Welcome to 52 weeks of C Sharp and .NET. I'm going to start doing some C Sharp and .NET every week here, live code, just show some stuff that I've been working on. I've done C Sharp really in more like a hobbyist way since, let's say 2010, something like that. So I've definitely had some experience with C Sharp, F Sharp, PowerShell, but I haven't really done really a deep dive on it. Again, I'm more of a kind of a hobbyist with it, and either even though I've explored things like Unity, Xamarin, and done some production software with it, I'd like to go a little bit deeper and kind of just play around with it each week. So that's really the idea here: is that there's not necessarily an agenda. Maybe it's a little bit of a rambling road here, but the idea here is to dig into more C sharp stuff and play around with it, especially with an eye towards modern tools. So using things like, for example, GitHub Codespaces, integrating with AWS, those kinds of things I think would be things that I'd probably cover most heavily. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to share my screen and get started. And what I will do is first start out with building an environment inside of GitHub Codespaces. I think that's probably one of the better places to really develop uh, for uh, for C Sharp. I mean, there's obviously you can use Visual Studio, you can use Visual Studio Code locally. I prefer, in fact, to develop inside of an environment like GitHub Codespaces. Let me show you how it works. So first up, I'll say new, and actually let me try a different organization where I have some really powerful tools. So here I have an environment that I use for teaching, where I teach in the university level. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new repo inside of here, and I'm going to say, uh, really the basics. So we'll go ahead and say live coding, uh, C sharp here, and I'll put in some notes, day one of live coding with C sharp and .NET. And I'll make this a public repo. I'll add a README file, always a good idea. And now for the templates, we're going to add, for Gitignore, I'll add Visual Studio because I'm going to be developing in that context quite a bit. And I'll add a Creative Commons license here. Okay, I'll create this repo. And so this is step one when you start developing inside of this environment. Is you create the repo in GitHub. Now to use GitHub Codespaces, I'm gonna, since I already have this enabled for my account, that's an education account that I use at the university level. I'm gonna go ahead and select code, and then notice it says create Codespace on main, limit of 30 Codespaces reached. Okay, so this happens if you're a huge user of Codespaces, which I am. Pretty easy to fix. All I got to do is go over to my account and open up a new tab here, and I'll go to Codespaces and I'll just delete, something I did recently. So I have one available. There we go. So that's deleted. Now, if I refresh this, you can see now that it's been enabled. Now, if I go here, I'm going to do a custom Codespace. So by default, you can get a pretty powerful machine, like a 2-core machine. But because I'm going to be compiling code and doing a bunch of stuff in C sharp here, I want to get a really beefy machine. I'm going to scroll down here to the 16 core machine with 32 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. This will be really, really useful for me when I'm doing C sharp compilation. There we go. Now this thing is set up and ready to go. Uh, Again, what's really awesome about this environment here is it's got all of the bells and whistles for me that I would need to be a developer for C Sharp, .NET, in addition to all the things that people are doing with Python and Jupyter Notebook, etc. And so what I'm going to first do is configure the color theme right here, and I'm going to go to dark mode Visual Studio. that seems like a good one for me to select. There we go. You can see I've been able to configure that. Also make this a little bit bigger as well. Like I like a slightly big screen here. And a couple of things to point out that are awesome is that let's just show you one thing that's nice about GitHub Codespaces for doing development work here is if I say, for example, references, let's add a references section to my code. What's nice is that if I want to, I can preview. So I can select this. There we go, right? And I can preview my markdown changes. But I also have really incredible integration with GitHub. So if I say git status, look, I have a README file. I just say git add README, boom. And now I can go ahead and commit this adding change to README. And then if I just say git push, I don't even have to do SSH keys or anything. We're good to go, right? And that's awesome for me in terms of just kind of getting started and getting ready to go. Now, one of the things to point out here is that I also can use the .NET CLI. And so if we go here and we say, for example, I believe I had this GitHub Codespaces.net, you can see here using GitHub Codespaces with .NET Core. There we go. We got a good article here. And you can see we announced this for early support for .NET Core. You can see all these different things that you can do for it. There should be some documentation here for some of the things that you can do. And so here we go. Codespaces example, .NET Core. This is a starter. This project is a .NET Core starter for developers to use in Codespaces that includes basic tools and extensions. And so they give you a link. So let's add this as a reference point here. So we can say, Codespaces .NET starter kit, Codespaces .NET starter kit. There we go. And we have got that listed now. And you can see here, there's a bunch of different things that they are recommending that you can do in here. Like these are different tools, Azure Functions, Core Tools, .NET, SDK, a free cross-platform and open source compiler for your code right here. And also there's Visual Studio Code extensions. So these are already, I believe, installed automatically for you. And then here's some dot files as well. And so here's some notes here that they talk about. They say for usage, you're going to want to head on over to Online Visual Studio and sign up for the Visual Studio Codespaces. And in particular, we can see here, you'll create an environment instance. We've got all this connecting to the environment. So there's some good notes here that somebody would want to use. I would say maybe the thing that I would probably highlight to start with is that the .NET tool is already installed, right? So you can see here that this gives us the ability to look at, for example, the install runtime. So if we say list SDKs, here we go. We have 3.1 and 6. So .NET 6 is really the latest and greatest runtime here. And one of the nice things about .NET 6 is there's some really cool new technologies like Blazor. And I think I have an example Blazor. Let me look at my repo here and see if I have a Blazor example. C# .NET 6. Here's maybe where I have one. Yeah, here's a Blazor app that I built out, and you can see this example. And did I put some docs here for Blazor? This is a Docker container build. I don't necessarily see the Blazor, but we can just take a look at this Blazor app here. That the program file is pretty simple, and in fact, I can just look at Blazor and just follow the instructions. So let's go ahead and do that. Blazor.net hello world, And if we go here, we can probably just follow. Here we go. So let's get started. There we go. So we need the .NET command line tool. We've got it. And then we go to the next step, which is we create our Blazor app. So let's just follow this instruction. In fact, I'll put a link to it here. So we'll say references, Blazor, how do you spell Blazor tutorial there? There we go. So we have a Blazor tutorial that looks pretty good. And so we'll just follow the instructions here to build this out. In fact, I'll probably put a little README here that says Blazor steps or something like this. And then we would just go through here and do the first part here so we can copy that. I'll put this command inside of here. And so let's look at what the command does. It says .NET, build a new Blazor server app, no HTTPS. So basically make it unencrypted and target .NET 6. Okay, that looks pretty reasonable. Let's go ahead and do that. And let's run this command. So we can go through here and run this command now. And this will locally create that application. There we go. And we have an app called Blazor app. And look inside, we've got all this stuff inside of here. And so notice that once I've done this, it says, do you want to install the recommended extensions for C#? Yep, let's go ahead and do that. It's going to go ahead and install those extensions. So really, Visual Studio Code is pretty cool because, and let me even make this a little bit bigger, because it has so much great integrations and it even knows what you're doing. So we go here and we say required assets to build and debug are missing. Sure, why not? Let's do it. Let's go ahead and do what you want me to do. I really like that kind of a workflow where it discovers what it is you're doing and it kind of helps you build it out. And now if we go back here, we're actually in a good spot here. We've got the C# environment created, and then you can look through here and you can see the code here. Pretty simple as well. And it's very procedural, right? You say make a instance, like it's kind of like a like a scripting language type web app. Add these services to the container. We go ahead and we make that app, and then we go through here and we say here's our application. Now, insert in terms of this tutorial, it's going to want us to cd into that directory. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's cd into the Blazor app directory. There we go. And then next up, let's take a look at the different components. So we have the program file, which I was just taking a look at. This is the logic, and this is where we would configure it. The app.razor is the root component of the app. The pages directory is some of the web pages. And then the CS_proj is the app project and its dependencies. And then the launch.json file is any kind of a setting that we want to change. Like, for example, if we wanted to change the port number, that's all you need to do. And if we go through here, in order to run it, all we need to do is do .NET watch. So let's go ahead and try that out. Let's see if this works. .NET watch. And there we go. Hot reload is enabled for a list of supported edits. See this? So that this is pretty sweet, right? Is that I can actually start, coding. And this is the part where the GitHub Codespaces plays a role, is that I can actually go inside of here and open up a browser and look, it's automatically figuring out the port that I need. And I just click on this, and now I can actually preview my application in real time. And if I want to go through and I want to pick the counter, right, there we go. We're able to actually get this thing working. So really cool stuff here. And in fact, I've got this real-time, preview menu right here. And so if we want to keep going, one of the things that we can do is we can look at the pages index file and take a look at it. In fact, let's go to that. Let's go to pages, go to index, and here's the template right here. And let's just change it so you can see the reloading in action. we'll go ahead and we'll say reload, and look, the file changed, hot reload, boom. And if we go back to our application right here, look, we've got the second exclamation point. If I want to add a third exclamation point and say, welcome to your new app, I keep changing, like, or I put, changed it, via hot loading, I guess, right? And now what's cool about this, look, it's hot reload, hot reload, hot reload. And look, there we go, right? We see that this thing is actually running in real time. So pretty sweet, actually, workflow. And if I go through here and I say next, we already went through that. We tried the counter. Now, if I wanted to, I could, I guess, look at this code and like mess with it a little bit. Sure, let's go ahead and do that. Let's look at the counter code here. So you can see how the logic works is that we have a page title right here, counter. It's a button, and it initializes a variable right here. That's a private variable that has a state of 0, and then it just does a increment right here, which is that it increases each time. Now, I guess if I wanted to play around a little bit, what I could do for fun is I could change this to 1, and let's see if we can change this code as well. And let's see what happens if I refresh. There we go. Look, see, it's already started at 1, but everything works, right? So I can tweak even the C# itself, and it does hot coding, which is, again, pretty sweet here. And now, if I want to add a component to this, what I could do is I could actually tweak this. So it says open the Razor file in the text editor of your choice. In this case, I'm using GitHub Codespaces. It already exists. Add a counter component to the app's homepage by adding counter element at the end of the index. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting. Let's try that out. So if we go back here and we go to the index, notice that, again, it doesn't have the counter component, but I can actually pull it in. And if we go back to home, look, there's a counter, right? And it's able to actually slurp that in. So that's definitely pretty cool. I like that. I like that feature of this framework. And we also can modify a component as well. So we can go through here and say component parameters are specified using attributes or child content, add a public property for increment amount, and then change the increment amount method to use it when incrementing. So yeah, that's kind of cool. So we can basically tweak this code here so that it is able to actually let someone choose how much the counter will increment, right? Makes sense to me. So if I go back to our app, I can go to the counter, tweak, swap out this code block, which again, still is running hot coding. And then I'm going to need to go to the into this piece of code, and I'm going to go to the index, and I'm just going to swap it out so that now the user has the ability to increment things. And so if we go back to our application and we go to home, we refresh this, we say, here we go. How does it work? Click on me. Look, it's now incrementing by 10 here, which is pretty nice. And if I keep going here, you can see here that I've really got this thing cooking. So what I'll do now is I'll just stop it. Now, you can obviously auto deploy this thing to, let's say, for example, AWS, using something like Copilot. And once you've got it tested in here, it would really be the next step. So I'll go ahead and say git status. Let's actually go up a directory, and we'll say git status. Say let's put the VS Code stuff. Let's actually hide that. So I'll say git ignore and I'm going to tell it to ignore the VS Code config. Go. And now if I do git status, should be there, dot git ignore. And I'm going to say git add readme, and git add Blazor app. Okay, so I got this thing checked in. Cool, adding Blazor. Okay, and we'll go ahead and put this in. Perfect. So we've pushed in one thing. Now, the second thing that I think will be cool to cover that really highlights why this environment is so awesome for working with .NET is that I think we can set up a continuous integration step here. And so what I will do is I'm going to go to another repo I set up a few days ago that deals with C#, and we'll go ahead and take a look. And C# GitHub Actions, this looks pretty good. And so what I can do is I can create a directory called hello tests and cd into it. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to do that. There we go. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use the .NET command to create some XUnit tests here. So we'll go ahead and do that. Perfect. And now we've got a .NET XUnit project, and that should be inside of this directory right here. Perfect. And now we see this is the unit test. And so the unit test is right here where it says fact. You can see there's nothing in there to start with. And what I will do is I will go to my other project here and I'll just essentially swap out some code I have that is a very trivial inline test. So this isn't really real world. This is more for like instructional purposes. And what I would do is create a test here that asserts that 2 and 2 is equal to 4, and then I would add an add function. So again, this isn't real world. I would separate this stuff, and they would be in different files and everything. But just for the sake of getting something working, I would just go through here and I would save it. Now, what do I do in order to build this project locally here? Fairly straightforward. What we can do is I can again go back to this project, and I'm going to set up. I'm going to look at the continuous integration script I have, and actually follow the steps that I use for a continuous integration process. So I'm going to run this command first. Is .NET restore, and we'll go ahead and do that. So this will go through and just if there were any dependencies, it would fix them. I think I can just say .NET restore like that, and so it says, "Yep, we're good." And then the next step that I would do would be .NET build no restore, and this just builds the project. In this case, I don't need the hello test because I'm in the directory, but I'll just run it right here. There we go. This compiles it, no warnings, perfect. And then the final thing that I'll do is I'll run the tests, and we'll go through here and we will run this test. And again, I'll just take out the hello test because I'm in the directory. And then we've got this thing. You can see here that C# is really a very, very good experience in this cloud-based development environment. If I want to check this in, pretty simple. I just go through here and I say git status, git add hello tests, git commit, adding unit tests. Now, if we want to get really tricky here, which we do, and useful, let's now do continuous integration. How do you do this on this platform? Pretty straightforward. What you do is you go to this section called actions right here. And once we set up actions, notice here with GitHub Actions, this is for building, testing, deploying code, making code reviews, all this stuff. In fact, it'll even tell you what it suggests, like, okay, here's build and test a .NET or ASP.NET core project. Here's how to build desktop apps, whatever it is you want to do. If you want to do deployments, right, to Azure, to Amazon, to Google, whatever it is you want to do, you can go ahead and do this. If you want to do continuous integration. So all this is really, really cool stuff. we're going to do our own workflow here because I've already got my action set up. I'm going to go back to my other project. I'm just going to copy this, right? Because I'm going to keep it simple. And if I go into this action file, let's just paste this. I'll even clean this up a little bit. Like, I don't really care about pull requests for now. In a real world project, I would. I don't care about it for now. And I want to just make it as small as possible. But what I do care about is we want to run it on Ubuntu. I want the .NET version to be 6.0, and then I want to run these 3 commands. I want to run dependencies or put them into the build if they're needed. I want to compile the code, and then I want to test the code. This is kind of classic continuous integration. If I go ahead and I select that button, this will build the process. And if I go to the actions icon right here, we can see, there we go. We're compiling our project and building it and testing it. And this works so seamlessly on the this GitHub Actions environment. Here we go. We're setting up .NET. This is the first part. This is installing the dependencies that are necessary. Essentially doing the .NET install, the command line tool. This is installing dependencies if they're necessary. This one is running the tests, and then we're able to complete. And if I click on this button right here, I can go ahead and say create status badge. I can copy this status badge, and then I can go here and I can actually paste this inside of our project. Perfect. And we've got this thing working. I can go ahead and I can commit these changes. And now I've got a full working continuous integration as well. So we're able to cover a lot of stuff, right? And if I want to go back here, I can do this, right? I can say get pull, and all of my changes are back. So really, for doing .NET, I think the GitHub Codespaces environment here really is one of the cooler environments that you can work with because of this tight integration with the rest of GitHub Actions, and really getting continuous delivery working. And so if you have a chance, go ahead and check this out. So next week, I'll keep building stuff inside of C#, and we'll kind of go to the next step of our journey. All right. Talk to you soon.